Hi, everybody.
Hello, welcome to 6 Feet Unfiltered.
I'm Chloe.
I'm Courtney.
So today we're going to dive into 6 Feet Under Season 1, Episode 8. We're like over halfway done with the first season. That is crazy.
There's how many episodes?
I think there's 12.
Okay, that's amazing.
Or 13 maybe. I know. This episode is titled Crossroads. We've got breakups, betrayal, ballroom dancing, and one of the most memorable decapitations in 6 Feet Under history. So yeah, we have got a lot to unpack. This episode throws everyone into some kind of existential crisis.
I felt like I was in an existential crisis watching it.
It was a good one.
Like, did I take an ecstasy or what? I have no idea.
Actually, same.
It was a little much for me.
I'm going to go into that more, but I felt the same for a few reasons. So whether it's Nate trying and failing to keep his sanity around Brenda's never-ending chaos, Rico realizing he might actually be worth more than a handshake and a pat on the back, or Claire accidentally enrolling in Survivor Cult Retreat Edition. Oh, and David, he's out here getting twirled around by a hot ballroom dancer like he's finally embracing his main character era. So grab a drink, avoid all low-hanging construction equipment, and let's get into Crossroads, an episode that proves sometimes the biggest messes aren't in the prep room.
Heartbreak and champagne. The opening death scene. A dangerous fucking cocktail. Fresh off a breakup and drowning her sorrows into the back of a limousine with her besties, which would be us.
Yes.
Chloe Yorkin, not to be confused with our Chloe, isn't exactly making the best choices. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
She made fine choices. That sign shouldn't have been there. Fueled by booze and bitterness, she climbs up through the sunroof, basking in the fleeting thrill of a reckless abandon. But as the limo glides down the street, Chloe is oblivious to the very real, very solid aerial work platform looming in her path. In one brutal instant, the party is over permanently. A messy breakup turns into an even messier death, proving once again that grief and gravity do not mix.
Poor Chloe.
Gravity is just really tough, too.
It is.
Right off the bat, we're watching this, and my husband, who... Does anybody else have a husband that says that they don't want to watch the TV shows with you, but then they're, like, sitting there watching it, and they're like, why'd you pause that? Or, you know, like, they're obviously watching. This is that scenario, and he goes, oh, the decapitation episode. And I'm like, how the fuck... First of all, you said you weren't watching this. And second of all... How do you remember that? We watched this 10 years ago, and I hadn't even put two and two together.
Yeah, I think it was probably the sunroof. See the sunroof, and you know what's coming.
Yeah.
But I, just like you said, Courtney, I was going to say, when I was watching this death scene, I was like, okay, this is us in 15 years. First one of us to get a divorce, and we're going to be out in the limo partying and sticking our heads through the sunroof.
Because why not?
And her name is Chloe. So hopefully
so weird.
I don't get decapitated when that is inevitably our life in the future.
I mean, we could blame the limo driver.
Yeah, but I'd still be dead.
True.
Okay, so this episode starts with David and Nate talking about their dad, Nathaniel, and it's like, remember when he used to say this or something, and Nate gives David a look and he says, you know a whole side of dad that I never did. And there's a quick moment where David just looks at Nate, and I felt like David in that moment was processing. He was like slowly starting to come more to the realization how Nate feels about not knowing Nathaniel, and that David actually did know him. Even if they weren't like close, he still worked with him every day, so he did know a whole side of Nathaniel that Nate never did. So I think that moment was like David connecting, like, oh, you're sad about that.
Yes, and I want to just bounce off of that too, because I think it's only natural and normal for... I have a different relationship with every single one of my kids. Mm-hmm. And so I think when you do become a parent, if you become like an intuitive parent or somebody that is, you're just self-reflection, like you're just a reflective parent. Mm-hmm. And you realize that your kids do have different relationships with you. So when I saw that, I did see the sadness and whatever, but I wanted to be like, Nate, David has a different relationship with your dad, and you have a different relationship with your dad. And they're both beautiful.
Yeah.
In their own way.
Yeah. That's true.
So it kind of stung me a little bit.
And honestly, he's probably looking at it as like, oh, they were so much closer. But I don't think they really were closer. David just happens to know more random things about him because they were in closer proximity.
Yep.
But he's in his feels, so he's...
If they weren't so much closer, David would have came out to his dad.
Maybe.
I think so. I think that what people see in relationships, it's like you see the stuff on social media. So-and-so, they're so happy together.
Maybe Nathaniel was like a huge bigot. Like, we don't know.
True.
And I think there was a moment in one of the most recent episodes where David was talking to the church people. One of them made a comment about his dad being anti-gay or alluded to it. But obviously we don't know if that's true either. We don't know anything about Nathaniel for sure. But anyway, there's that little tiny moment at the beginning. It wasn't super significant to the rest, in connection with the rest of the episode, but just continuity over the series. I think it's an important piece. And then David starts quizzing Nate on his knowledge for the funeral director's exam that he's been studying for, and David really needs him to pass. And then Brenda finally calls Nate. So what the heck, when this happened...
Because we went right from...
The last time we saw them...
Be gone for good.
Yeah. Don't come back or whatever she said. Forget about us. And now all of a sudden, it's like they're not having broken up. And like maybe they were trying to convey to us that this is just their back and forth, like normal for them to just break up.
Maybe Ellen Ball was just basically saying, "Oh, it was just yesterday's news. Get
they're
used
so
to
volatile. It doesn't. Yeah,
I'm gonna erase that one. I think that's exactly what was going on.
We get to answer one of these today.
I know.
Don't tell ASO. Oh, I feel like we're.
I was
stupid.
like, how the fuck did we not? Anyways,
I thought the same thing. So Brenda finally calls him and he's like, hey, like, where have you been? I guess she's been avoiding him or not picking up her phone for a few days, 6 days or something like that. And then they made plans to see each other on Tuesday. And Brenda had told him over the phone, basically, yeah, I've just been dealing with Billy with all his shit from when he had his episode. And why don't you come over? We'll see you Tuesday. Then he gets off the phone and he goes back to David and he's complaining about Brenda. Like, she expects me to deal with this and act like this. And David does not give a fuck what he has to say about Brenda. He just starts continuing to shoot off these questions. And you can tell that Nate doesn't really know his stuff. He knew one of the answers.
Yeah. 1
out of like 3. And then when he got the one correct, he had his sunglasses on sitting back like, yeah.
It's not the fucking, the LSTAT or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the bar. It's not the bar.
And then he gets them all wrong. And then we cut to the next scene and Rico is getting up close and personal, looking really closely at Chloe Yorkin's bashed in head, explaining to Gilardi,
bad haircut,
how he would fix her up for her service. So we're finding out that this death scene character is not a Fisher and Sons funeral home death scene person. It's a Kroner.
Gilardi.
What are these called? Kroner
who knows
services?
What is whom? My first thoughts was, oh, here she is. And then I was like, Rico's going to be so excited about this one.
Yeah.
But then we do cut to his face and I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. That, and then...
Sleazy little shit.
I know. Actually, you're probably going to not like my tone in my notes because I kind of was a little pro Rico this episode. But I will say the first time I watched this, and even now still, I do understand, because we have already now just in this first season built up such a love and loyalty to the Fisher family that we're looking at this situation. I feel like if you step out and look at it just from an objective perspective, Rico should be doing the thing that's going to make him the most money.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
He's got 2 kids. Well, 1 and then 1 on the way.
Yeah. And even if he didn't have any kids.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point.
Like, you obviously need money for your kids, so that's even more of a reason for him to do what's best for him. But basically, he's there with Gilardi. They hired him to do this, and he charged them $1,500. And Mr. Gilardi says, okay, for someone with your talent, that's a bargain. And he walks away, and Rico's like, stop blowing smoke up my ass. I'm not quitting the Fishers. Mr. F put me through school. And Gilardi just kind of rolls his eyes, and he's like, have her done by 5, dick, I wrote. I think that even speaks to his character a little bit in a positive way as well, because he starts out not wanting to leave. It's not like he jumped at the first chance. He's already turned them down, and now they keep coming and approaching him with more and more, and we'll it continues throughout this episode too, but at a certain point, anybody would accept that.
Yes, I was just thinking, put yourself in a woman's shoes, and how would you have to navigate that scenario? And you would have to probably do a little bit of a giggle and, oh my God, thanks. Maybe probably flirt with them and say, oh, let me think about it or whatever. And he was just straight up.
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying now. The way that Rico was just not very polite, I guess.
Yeah. So if it were me and I went in there and I wanted the $1,500, I might have a little bit of, okay, I probably should, even though I don't like these guys and I don't want to work for them, I should probably be nice.
Yeah.
And put on a show. It's like your first day of work versus your 100th.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. It was interesting to see how, and he also is really good at what he does too.
Yeah. And Rico is, as we've discussed before, he's a little spicy. But yeah, no, it's a good point. I totally get what you're saying. So then we see Claire out hiking because she's at the Sierra Crossroads program that we talked about last episode, and she's talking to her guy friend Topher, and she's apparently obsessed with Castaneda because they're referencing, she's just constantly reading Castaneda and referencing it, and I'm probably an idiot because I don't know more about what that is, but I'm pretty sure it's like a spiritual philosopher type guy. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's an underlying hidden message behind why she's obsessed with that, but I haven't
delved into it yet.
Yeah. And then Topher thanks Claire for the 12th time for getting him high that morning. LOL. Of course, Claire brought weed. And the group leader is the guy from The Walking Dead.
Yes. So we're watching this. Again, my husband from out of nowhere. Hey, that's the guy from The Walking Dead. And I was like, what? Who?
You didn't recognize him? I recognized him.
No, I didn't because I didn't watch The Walking Dead. I did watch all of them, but not...
A long time ago.
It was a long time ago. I remember Glenn. I could pick Glenn out of it, and he's like, yeah, that's the guy that dies with Glenn with the baseball bat. And I was like, oh.
I don't remember that. He probably did, but I don't remember anyone else dying with Glenn. I just remember Glenn. But not saying that didn't happen.
Which was years later, right? So this was 2001.
Oh, yeah.
And Walking Dead was like 20
years later.
Okay.
Walking Dead came out in 2010, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah. So Redhead Abraham, if you're a Walking Dead fan, that's what I kept thinking in my head because his character's name was Abraham, and he's played by... Yeah, I didn't like him in The Walking Dead either.
Interesting.
Michael Kudlitz, it looks like his name is. So we both recognize him for some reason.
I did not, but I have been.
Rob did. Nate suggests offering to David that they offer their space in the funeral home for senior ballroom dancing lessons for extra cash flow. And at first David was like...
He threw out a couple other ideas too.
Yeah,
and he was like, no, can't do that, blah, 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 blah.
And then David said no to the ballroom dancing, and he's like, come on, they're chill, and then when one of them dies, they're going to want to come to us.
They're going to want business.
Yeah, and David then was like, that's not a bad idea. And I laughed so hard when I watched this particular episode 2 times. The first time I watched, and Nate responds, all right, good, because they'll be here at 2.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, that's something I would pull.
Yes. And I don't know what it was about his delivery when he says that line, all right, good, because they're going to be here at 2. It reminded me, I mean, that's for sure something you would say, but I feel like it reminded me of how, I can't put my finger on exactly who it is, but one of our friends, like, the inflection in his voice, I was just like, that sounded just like, and it sounds like something that we
I'll have to go back and watch that part too. I was also saying too, I love how he's trying to get creative. That's where the partnership comes into play. And I say this a lot because there's a lot of similarities between me and Nate. And I identify with a lot of the things that he goes through and says, and him being that more creative one and thinking about what's next, and David being the more analytical. Nate knows how to butter up and get David to be on board with the things. He knows what buttons to press.
I think it's part of his empathy.
Yes. Which is also a blessing and a curse, like we say all the time too. But I was just like, good on you, Nate.
Yeah. He's cute. He's getting creative, and he's trying. He's putting effort in. He's showing he cares. So then Rico sneaks in while they're having this discussion about the ballroom dancing.
In the same scene.
Yes. And they see him. You can tell he's trying to go quickly. And he lies to them and says that he needs to go to an ultrasound with Vanessa when actually he had come there to grab supplies to go do the Kroner job of Chloe.
Why didn't they give... I was thinking about that too. Why didn't Kroner give them the supplies?
He said that he was going to use his own. There's a line in there. He's like, also, I use my own stuff. Kroner's supplies is shit or something.
Okay, I do remember that now.
He's particular.
Okay.
So David is sick of being the asshole constantly and Nate being the cool guy. And this is valid because when he says he has to go to the ultrasound, David said something bitchy and Nate was like, oh, yeah, no, of course you go. And so David was pissed at Nate about being the cool guy when David always has to be the asshole. So then David tells him that he has to tell Rico to clean the walk-in the next day. But I thought that was kind of valid because, first of all, David is the only one who knows all these things that need to be done around the funeral home. Nate doesn't even know. So it's not like David is choosing to just be bossy. These things need to get done, but he's the only one who knows to tell people, but then he's forced to be viewed as the dick. But he's the only one who can do that.
I never put that together in my head, and now I love that you said that because I can totally see how frustrating that could be.
It's almost like you can compare it to a lot of other relationship dynamics.
Yes. And because when
like being a woman or a mom or being the
whoever's
caretaker.
in charge. Yes, the manager.
Yeah.
Whoever's the manager and knows how to do the things.
And it's weaponized incompetence. It's kind of what Nate has here in a way, or has had.
Oh my God.
And it's literally the exact same thing actually, because if you were to say that to Nate, hop into the show and say it to him in that moment, this is weaponized incompetence that you're not doing anything, he would be like, that's not true. He would, because he doesn't even realize what he's doing. And it's the same as with men.
What the fuck?
In a relationship. Because they really think in their head. That is exactly what's going on. That's kind of crazy.
Oh my God. Because when I was watching that and he said that, I was like, oh, come on, David. Then don't be the asshole.
Yeah.
Then don't be the bad guy or whatever.
And that's where I can really not a specific thing that I'm thinking of that I'm linking myself to David, but I feel like I have empathized with him more with his bitchiness.
You know where it comes from, and it's coming from an actual sweet place
or just like necessity.
Yeah.
It's like responsibility, you know? I feel like I did kind of, okay, here's one example that might make sense, might not. But when we were growing up and we would always be at my house, and I remember, I'm not saying anyone specific.
You can use me as an example.
Yeah, okay, you, but I don't think you would have ever been an example of this. But I remember people that would be over at my house all the time when we were teenagers and stuff. And then honestly, Kelsey, I have a memory of Kelsey when we'd constantly be sneaking around, drinking, smoking, sneaking out and stuff. And I wanted to do that stuff too, but we were at my house, so I would always be like freaking out.
Hyper-aware.
And be like, no, you guys need to make sure to clean that up and make sure this is that and
put this back where it was.
Yeah, and then people would always get pissed at me, stop being such a bitch or whatever, you know what I mean? But then I would feel so like, what the fuck? I have to. And then in that situation, as kids, nobody else is thinking because you're not aware. And it's like the same dynamic with Nate and David.
Damn.
Anyway,
that was a good tangent.
That was.
I feel like it's relatable. If any of you guys are watching this, I want to know if you have a specific story about that, that you just were like, holy fuck. Because my mind is just blowing with a bunch of shit.
Or if you just came to a realization, maybe. Because, yeah, I did not think about all of that whole thought we went on just now.
Until now.
Yeah.
That's what I love about this.
Yes.
Nate goes downstairs.
Nate goes downstairs to the prep room, and he's like, Rico, and startles him. And he's startled because he was grabbing chemicals and supplies and stuff, and he didn't want Nate or anyone to see. And Nate tells Rico that David wants him to clean the walk-in. He's like, yeah, your brother's got to bug up his ass about cleanliness. And Nate goes, yeah, I know. When we used to play G.I. Joes when we were little, he always used to want to give his a shower. And Rico's face in that moment, he looks at Nate like, okay. So that was a funny little quip there. It was hilarious.
Okay, but did he want to give his a shower because he wanted to see the pee-pee?
Because I think it was a rough joke reference to him being gay, but Nate being a dummy, because I don't think he said it intentionally for it to be a gay joke.
Yeah.
But because it was real. But
he
to
was
the
talking about
viewers,
the cleanliness.
Yes. And then Rico walks out and Nate realizes that Rico had taken stuff. So you can see him kind of processing internally.
But not asking right then and there.
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
I don't think he realized until, because Rico was like, all right, gotta go. Yeah, he dipped out. And then it showed Nate looking at the cabinet and was like, Okay, so we're back at the Crossroads program. And the douche, I wrote douche because he was a kind of a douche. Abraham, what was his name in this show? Dennis, right?
Yes.
So his name is Dennis, the group leader, who is played by Abe from The Walking Dead. Tells the group of teenagers that they have to leave from there on out and use their navigation skills. And he picks on Parker McKenna, who is a girl who was there, who was in the last episode or episode before that. And she was one of the girls that Claire was going around and she was imagining them all growing up and one of them got cancer. And Parker was the one who was going to be a CEO. Yeah. And anyway, she's there too. And Claire is talking shit about Parker to her friend Topher. And Claire thinks Parker is a goody two shoes, and they're just saying shit about her, like, what a pussy, basically. And then we see Ruth and Nikolai eating lunch together at the flower shop. Also, Nikolai is Russian and not Greek. Did you catch that? I said he was Greek. I totally thought he was Greek. His accent sounds Greek, but apparently Greek and Russian can sound similar. I don't know. But Nikolai's definitely
Russian. I
Russian.
don't remember. Yes, I feel like I did write Russian. Did I write Greek somewhere?
No, I said last episode or a couple episodes ago that he's Greek because he sounds like my Greek grandpa.
Oh, I do remember you saying
He does,
that.
though. The accents sound the same. But I totally this whole time thought he was Greek. But then we see him in this episode in a full-on, in Ruth's imagination, in a Russian uniform.
I know,
which
that
we'll get to
was
later.
friggin' hilarious.
Super funny. But yeah, Ruth and Nikolai are eating lunch together.
And I want to talk about the difference between how what Nikolai said. He was like, you guys speak so much differently, how Russians speak and the Fishers speak. And he's like, the Russians, we speak, what did he say? With our love and our passion. And the Fishers, they speak with their throat, like the mouse.
And he goes, like,
yes. And then I was like, oh my God, he is so right.
Yes.
The way that at least Ruth for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, yeah,
that
the
was
little
super
throat
funny.
and the mice.
Yes, I'm glad you put that in there. That part made me laugh too, and I thought that Ruth was gonna get pissed, but she actually laughed. She thought it was really funny, and she was
Bless her
listening.
soul.
It was super cute. So they were kind of flirting with each other, and they're giving each other shit. And then Hiram walks up to bring Ruth lunch, and Nikolai immediately gets pissed because he's jealous.
Cock blocked.
And Ruth introduces them, and Nikolai's a dick to Hiram. He says he burnt the food or whatever when she offers for him to try it. And he goes, oh, you burnt it. And then he goes like, lunch is over, now we work. And he storms off. And Hiram apologized to Ruth and was like, I'm sorry for getting you in trouble with your boss. And Ruth says, oh, don't worry, I can handle him.
And she can.
She totally can, but there's so much tension there. Like underlying tension with their dynamic of, oh, I can handle him. And it's like a spicy kind of like flirtation.
Was it a threat?
To who?
I don't know. Was she just threatening? Was she like giving herself permission to handle him at that moment?
Maybe
I
she
feel like
was
she's-
telling herself, yeah, this is my circus. So then David walks into the ballroom dancing lesson with all the old folks to check on it, and there's a cute young gay man leading it, and they make eyes at each other.
Super hot. And I was dying because all I could think about is, where's Keith? Why have we not even talked about Keith yet? Which we do later.
Yeah, a little bit. So you said that Kurt, the ballroom dancer instructor,
Yes,
was familiar. So I looked it up. His name is Stephen Pascal, and he was in
Aliens versus Predator, which I might have seen in Rescue Me in Coma.
I haven't seen any of those. Maybe, okay, Rescue Me was a TV show, though, I think.
Okay.
So maybe he was in that, or he obviously was in that. Maybe we recognize
Coma
him
sounds familiar, too. It sounds like something I would watch. But he's super cute.
He is cute, very cute, and younger.
I didn't even get that vibe. When they were talking at dinner,
I didn't recognize it right away either. But David's only 32.
Yeah,
so.
That's young as fuck.
Yeah. That's how old we are. And
Yeah.
David's the old, we'll get to that. Okay.
So I'm older than Nate.
No. Nate's the oldest.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
He's 35.
Darn it.
We can still feel a little young. So then Nate phones Rico's house and Vanessa answers and accidentally lets it kind of slip that she was not at an ultrasound. She tries to backtrack and
because she knows that Rico was doing stuff.
Right.
Which also tells how much they talk.
Yes, they have a very strong relationship at the beginning. Foreshadowing. And then Nate realizes even more that Rico has lied to them.
Mm-hmm.
Then back at the ballroom dancing scene, Kurt, the ballroom instructor, grabs David for a demonstration. This is what you were talking about. And they're close, they're spinning around together, and David is like smiling, and the guy makes him dance with him some more for a demonstration. I thought it was super cute. And David is imagining in his head that they kiss. So obviously he's horned up, but you were mad that wasn't real. It was just this imagination.
And I was mad at myself for being mad that it wasn't real because I like Keith so much.
Oh yeah, honestly, that's so true.
I was going through a whole emotional circle there.
I kind of forgot about Keith, not forgot about him, but in this moment I did. But
which shows that it was like, I think it was very necessary for David to be doing.
I'm also a little mad at Keith right now because he was so mean and explosive.
And hasn't tried to reach out, at least.
Yeah, but I don't know, yeah. Then we see Rico working on Chloe, and another employee of Kroner is there in the same room, and she's asking him questions, and she says, Kroner's gonna bury Fisher and Sons, or something along those lines.
Which is also, is that a pun?
Yeah, it does. Then Rico says, I don't think so. Someone burned down the funeral home that they were building across the street. And she goes, somebody? You ever hear of Jewish lightning?
Which I didn't know what that means, but I knew what it meant.
I had never heard it before, but I put two and two together. Yes. And then she's like, oh, sorry, I didn't offend you, did I? I'm Jewish, I can say that. But basically what she's insinuating is that Kroner burnt down the abandoned house themselves for the insurance money, which apparently that's what Jewish lightning means, and that is an extremely racist
very
term,
racist.
And we're not saying not for real, it's just what the show said, and we're acknowledging that that's not okay to say, but it's what they say. But so that's how we find out that
we didn't even guess that.
No, and we knew
this
that
before.
and as soon as we both put this in our notes for this, how did we forget that? Because I literally knew, and this whole time I was like, I know, how could I have moved on before and not been thinking about this if we didn't eventually find out? And we did. It's because, and that's such an obvious, we're done.
I think that they did such a good job at making it seem like it was Claire and then it was Brenda, and that we were just left to the imagination. And then they gave us almost 2 full episodes of just being okay with it. Yeah. And then they threw all this.
Mm-hmm. But at least we found out finally. So we find out that Kroner is the one who burned it down. So Rico was kind of sketched out when he found that out.
Yes, but rightly so, which also good on his character.
Yes. And then that chick says, yeah, it's Gilardi's personal vendetta to close down Fisher and Sons.
It's not even business at this point. I feel like he's taking it personally.
Yes, for sure. And then Nate walks in on David and the ballroom guy chatting after the ballroom session, and the guy introduced himself as Kurt to David. And Nate is kind of being cute and says, oh, so you'll be back since it went well. And Kurt says, I hope so. And he looks at David, and Kurt asks David out on a date in front of Nate. And then Nate answers yes for him. David wasn't saying anything, so Nate was just like, yes, which I thought that was really funny. And Kurt,
so great.
He's like, okay, great, I'll pick you up tomorrow, and smiles and walks out, just super confident. And that's what David needs, because David's not confident. And that was super cute of Nate to be so supportive and not weird. I mean, it was a little weird, but funny weird. It was super supportive and just, he was like a wingman, basically. Mm-hmm. It's what you would do for a friend, any friend or brother or whatever. And then he says to David,
come on.
Yeah, come on, David. I have gaydar. I watch Will and Grace or something.
Which is so funny.
It was so nerdy.
I'm over here. Nate's pimping out David.
Yeah. And it's funny because Nate doesn't have gaydar because he didn't know David was gay. And remember when
he's just trying to fit in and feel...
Yes, and be supportive, which is sweet. But even when Nate first found out that David was gay, when he walked up with Brenda to David and Keith,
Yes.
it took him until 5
The
minutes after
parking
the
lot.
conversation to be like, I think
David's gay.
I was like, I am gaydar.
Oh, God.
But yeah, that's what David says to me. He's like, you just pimped me out.
Yep. I put it in quotes. I forgot that it was an actual quote.
Then Topher and Claire are hiking and chatting some more, and Parker butts into them on the hike and says hi to Claire. And she somehow knew that Claire had pot, which is why she was interested in kind of butting into their conversation. And Claire kind of tells her to fuck off. Not really fuck off, but she just looks at her like and walks away from her just in her Claire way. But I don't know. I'm going to save my take on Parker McKenna until we get through probably the whole episode. But
yes.
There's a lot to unpack with her.
Yes.
Then
agreed.
Kroner Gilardi is inspecting Rico's work on Chloe. And he's super impressed, and he starts asking Rico if he's interested in consulting, something more permanent, maybe even his own funeral home. And Rico says he'll think about it. So he goes from he's never going to leave the Fishers to, okay, I'll think about it. And Gilardi goes, oh, by the way, this offer lasts 48 hours.
Actually, this is what pissed me off. Gilardi said, yes, that's such a good idea. You definitely should take your time and think about this stuff. And by the way, this offer lasts only 48 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
he's always got to be a dick.
Yes, but he was playing mind fucking games. I don't know.
Yeah, he is. He thinks he is, at least. But here is where I put in, honestly, I don't blame Rico for doing this or for considering joining them. If they're offering a ton more money, what is he supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we don't want him to leave the Fishers, but in reality, what would anyone do in that situation? We already kind of covered that. But honestly, that's just the way the world works. Here's more money. You deserve it. Okay, thank you. Like, yes. That's what you do. That's what he should do. So then Nate is walking up to Brenda's house because remember they were going to hang out. And he approaches Brenda's and he finds broken glass from the front door window and he's scared. He thinks someone broke in. He's walking
Randomly
in.
so.
He's calling for Brenda. The house is completely gross, destroyed, messy. There's beer bottles,
everywhere.
Food. It's disgusting. And a naked Australian guy walks out and says, "Crikey." And he introduces himself as Connor to Nate and says, yeah, Brenda's told me about you. You must be Nate. Super casual, but also naked. And Nate is obviously kind of stressed and confused. And he's like,
rightly so.
Can you put something on, man? And he goes, oh, don't worry. I don't like blokes. Like, okay. And we
not what the point was.
Pain. It was gross. He was not it was ewy. And Nate's asking where Brenda is. And Connor says he doesn't know, but also he's not sleeping with her. And Nate's just looking at him like, what the hell is going on?
But he just came from the bedroom.
Yeah. Yes.
More on that later.
Exactly. And this guy says to him, he's laughing. He's like, you're thinking I'm pretty sus, aren't you?
Which is funny because that's now the word.
Sus. I know. I thought that too. I thought that people just said sus now as like a new thing. But
it's not. It was already invented.
Apparently.
Interesting.
Maybe it's an Aussie thing.
Ooh. It might be. We'll have to look that one up too. My whole thoughts are, what the fucking actual fuck? I had so many thoughts going on. Why is there a naked man at Brenda's? Why is the door broken? Why is it a fucking mess? And why is Nate so calm? I couldn't handle it.
What would you... So we haven't got to the part where Brenda comes home yet.
No.
So how would you have reacted? How would you have expected him to react? Not that I disagree. I'm just curious.
Okay, so he walked in like he was an inspector. Like he was actually trained in the fucking army to do all of this stuff. Me, I would have walked up to the door and I would have been like, what the fuck? I would have been already calling the police.
Yeah.
100%. Looking around at the mess, I would have been freaking out. I wouldn't have been Brenda, I'd been like, Brenda, where the fuck are you? What's going on? And then with the dude just standing there and his little penis hanging out, I would have been like, could you please put clothes on? I'm not talking to you anymore until you put more clothes on.
Yeah. Nate was very cautious. He must have just been stunned. But I agree. I probably would have freaked out.
He had very good self-control, let me just say. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like to think that I could maybe do that, but I'm pretty sure I would have been irate.
Yeah. It probably took a lot for him to have that much self-control, and he's probably at this point built up some because of how much Brenda's fucked with him. So he's thinking in the back of his head.
Didn't Brenda tell him to come over?
Yeah, we don't know what time it is exactly though, so maybe but yeah, I'm
So
assuming
he
it was
showed
when they
up at the time Brenda said,
Yeah.
No, there's just so many things going on.
Yeah.
Why was this naked man in her bedroom?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even really think about that explicit aspect that she told him to show up there when he was in there naked and there's glass. It was like she wanted
him to see it. This is like a mind fuck. Yes. That's, I think, it was super frustrating for me. Like, why did you tell me to be here? You, first of all, weren't even going to be here. Second of all, you left your house with, I need more information about this door. Like, why is the door broken?
Yeah. What did you think I was going to think? I understood why Nate was pissed to begin with, but now that I'm thinking about it like that,
he was too calm for my liking.
It's more so, yeah, exactly. And he ends up saying this later on, but it's like she's trying to get him to run away. But then,
which isn't fair. That's not.
No, it's mean.
Okay.
It's not. Yeah, but we know Brenda has her flaws and she grows so much, but this is at the very beginning. So yeah, she has a lot to work through. We really quickly see Claire looking for Topher around the campfire at this retreat and asking if anyone has seen him. It was like a quick blip. Then we move to Brenda getting home and walking into Nate and Connor sitting together in her living room, and
calmly
is still naked. And yeah, calmly. And she goes, I take it you two have met?
I was last in contact.
No, you didn't. I see him.
Can you fix it?
Hope it fixed.
Okay.
I saw it pop back on.
I just blinked and it was... Okay.
So she walks in, she goes, I take it you two have met, and she hands Connor his pants and says, hey you, to Nate.
Brenda's walking in with his motherfucking laundry.
Connor's. Naked man.
The naked man's laundry. And then tells her, this is really unattractive behavior, Nate. I really think this is freak out worthy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. She walks in all nonchalant. And she had been out to the laundromat or whatever and gave this guy's laundry. And then she walks into the kitchen and Nate follows her. And then Nate starts freaking out on her there. And that's where she says, like, this is really unattractive behavior. But
which it would be in a different scenario. It's okay to have questions about naked men and glass. There's still no answers about the door. I'm just so concerned.
I'm having like a whole moment in my head. Because
tell us about it.
It's not that I thought Nate was not valid in his freaking out. I just didn't connect the fact that she had told him. I knew that, but I'm thinking more deeply about the fact.
Now that we're talking about it and like pulling the things together.
To come there. And then she's because at first I was like, yeah, I get why Nate's pissed, but Brenda is who she is. But now that I'm thinking about that added piece, I'm like, yeah, that's not okay of her. I agree that she's in the wrong in this situation, but it's intentional, and it's because of her own trauma.
Yep, her past trauma.
Not saying that's an excuse, but that's just what it is. And she says to Nate, Connor's a very old friend, don't freak out. And Nate asks where Connor has been sleeping. And she gestures over to a sleeping bag on the floor. And he asks, why didn't you tell me about him? And she says, because she knew that he would freak out. And she says, I'm touched that you're jealous, but get over it because you have no reason to be, I promise. And then she kisses him and she invites him to dinner the next night with Connor and Billy. And Nate freaks out on her again for ignoring her. And he's like, what the hell with Billy? So Billy hasn't even been here. You said Billy was here. You've been ignoring me. Starts freaking out again. And she goes, okay, I fucked up. I'm sorry. Been under a lot of pressure. And then again, she's like, please just don't blow this out of proportion. And Nate says, okay.
That pissed me off. But also, I think it pissed me off because I'm proud of him for not getting, I'm proud of him for taking the higher road.
Yeah.
And saying, okay, and just trusting her because that's hard to do. And it probably is the right thing to do. In
that moment, I think it was. I don't think that he should drop it completely and let it go. But I think, especially given that this naked guy is still, well, he has pants on now, but this motherfucker is in the next room. Like, it wasn't the time or place to get into it, probably. But
That's emotional intelligence on his behalf.
We're seeing a lot of growth from him already. He was being very mature. And we probably both agree he was giving her a little bit too much leeway. But also, like we just said, it wasn't probably the best time to really get into an argument there. But they kiss.
And to be completely honest and fair, I don't think that Brenda was fucking him or whatever. You kind of get led to believe, other things. And so I think that oh my God, yeah, I'm having a moment too, because in a typical, stereotypical male-female relationship, this would not be okay. Now, I'm a sex coach. I work with couples of all sorts. I do deal with the stereotypicals. I also work with a bunch of different eccentric people that have different boundaries.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's just like their boundaries,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that definitely influences a relationship and the dynamics a whole lot. It's like the boundaries of each person involved.
And so I think that the writing too is like tugging at the conventional norms of society and giving us just a little bit of a taste on what else is out there.
Yeah, for sure. The unconventional or the non-traditional.
Yeah.
Especially through Brenda's character.
Yeah. She does this a lot. Like that's a common theme with her.
For sure.
Interesting.
But ultimately Nate is like, okay, what time should I come over tomorrow? So he's going to come over the next night and have dinner with those three.
Or, I just had another fucking thought. Or, remember, Brenda said, this is really unattractive behavior, Nate. What if that went to Nate's head and he's like, oh my God, I have to be this person for Brenda. So then as soon as that happened and she says, don't blow this out of proportion, that stuck in his head again quick and he's like, okay. How many times have you pretended that in my head,
he's pushing it down.
Yes, it's like you don't know anything about sports, but your boyfriend does. So you're like trying to pretend that you like sports because...
Yeah, he's trying to be somebody that he's not, which is pushing down his true emotion.
He's like, I'll show you how attractive I am.
Yeah.
I'm not going to blow this out of proportion.
Yes. Yeah. And we see those emotions all come flowing out of him later on. But yeah, that is what he's doing. He's trying to be someone he's not for her, I think. But that shows, I mean, he really loves her. Not saying that that's how you should show love or that you should ever try to change yourself for someone else.
But it is
telling. Just indicative of how much he cares about wanting to be with her and make her happy. Then Claire finds Parker in the woods fucking Dennis, the group leader, who was like I can't even tell how old he's supposed to be because he just looks like a 40-year-old man no matter what. I feel like
this is like a fantasy of mine.
Oh my God.
Obviously will never happen because I'm long gone.
Now you're the age.
I'm the fantaser or whatever. But
yeah.
I was like, damn girl, get it. And it's only been a fantasy of mine after it passed my age. I was like, why didn't I fucking do stuff like that?
Well, yeah. I mean,
because
also,
it's
it probably
illegal.
would have fucked you up. I mean, okay, it's a weird thing because they're like 17 or 18.
Yes,
that's
they're
a whole
almost
lot different than 14 or 15.
Correct.
Like equivalent to like a decade, I would say, in terms of how your brain matures from that age to this age. So I feel like it's still obviously gross and predatory of this guy to be.
On the fantasy note though, I want to say that's what makes fantasy so cool and great, or shows like this or scenarios. Like you don't actually have to act out a fantasy to get fulfillment from it. Just talking about it is so great. That's why you see all of what's one of the most top searched porn hubs? I'm pretty sure it's like stepmom.
So you're saying good thing we have porn.
Yes.
So we
don't have fantasies. Or talking about it with your partner.
Life.
Or you could talk about it with your partner, like, hey, I want you to be this this dentist, this old dentist man.
With dye your hair orange, please.
And can you fuck me in the floor outside of our backyard?
Yeah. But Claire found Parker fucking Dennis in the woods when she was looking for Topher, and then she's like, oh my God, and she walks away flustered. And Parker says to Dennis, oh, don't worry. No one will believe her. Everyone thinks she's crazy. So just another just remember all these Parker things, which I'm sure you already have your own opinion of her if you're listening to this because you've already watched the show anyway. But yes. So then Nate walks up to David's apartment and asks what he's watching. And David goes, PBS, very funny. Because the last time
The porn.
he was watching porn.
The army porn.
But Nate tells David that Rico was lying because he had called and Vanessa answered and yada yada. And David
basically gives him the spiel of what he's
what he's found out about Rico. And David said he's going to call around and see what he can find out about Rico going and doing his work for Kroner. And they discuss the situation, and Nate kind of defends Rico at first, but ultimately they both agree he lied to us, and they're hurt and upset. And then the next day at the Crossroads program, Parker approaches Claire and apologizes for the night before. She says, I hope you don't write me off because of this. Maybe it can even break the ice. I just think you're funny and cool, and sometimes I feel boring and lame around you, and I think it's because I want to be your friend. And Claire laughs and is like, why? And Parker's like, why not? And Claire's like, okay, well, this is totally weird, which was a funny Claire moment. I love her so much. But okay, you said that this was cute.
I did. I thought as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And then the more I find out, I'm like, this was meticulously planned out. It's almost like it was a scripted. She pulled the notes out of her pocket and said,
Parker is a psychopath.
It's almost like this could even break the ice. You know what I mean?
It was very disingenuous.
I don't believe a fucking thing she says anymore.
No, but that's kind of the magic of Parker McKenna.
Is that a CEO trait?
Probably.
I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, that fits that Claire had envisioned her as a CEO. But she's just very manipulative, extremely manipulative. She's fucking with people just to fuck with them to see what happens. We find out later on that she likes to do that. But I also love her character because it just spices things up a little. And
I think because she's relatable at a micro sense. So there's things that she does that I'm like, oh my God, maybe I haven't done that, but I've had similar thoughts. Or like the fantasy. She probably didn't even want to fuck that guy. She did. Oh, yeah. Never mind. We'll get to that part.
Yeah. And two, I'm just realizing this now, but she kind of falls under a similar umbrella as Brenda and Claire do in terms of being like their own, like individualistic in a way and their own kind of person. And I don't want to say, I don't know what word it is I'm looking for, but just not stereotypical, obedient,
children,
like,
woman,
patriarchal view of how a woman should be. Like
I almost want to say they're all a little bit confused. Parker more so. Parker's very confused.
I think Parker is just like a sociopath.
So yes, at the point when I was watching this, I was like, that is so sweet. I feel like this is just so kind.
I mean, there is an element to it because her and Claire do end up kind of becoming friends in a way. But I think Claire is intelligent enough to be able to see Parker for who she is. And so that makes it kind of safe for Claire to be friends with her because she knows
she can't pull a fast one.
She knows she's a psycho, but they can also relate to each other because Claire has
being
her
different.
own. Yeah, they're both kind of like outcasts in weird ways. Then Rico walks into the prep room and Nate asks how Vanessa is. And David asks him how Chloe Yorkin is. And
I didn't like this.
It was uncomfortable. And David says that he heard that they're calling her his Sistine Chapel, Rico's Sistine Chapel. And Rico's a little flustered, but he starts explaining himself. And they ask what Kroner offered him to leave. Rico's like, well, what are you offering me to stay?
So he never tells them.
He doesn't tell them, which I don't think they actually gave him. In that conversation,
there's no contracts.
Yeah, it was just, I'd pay you more than this. So there's no number. Yeah, I think he's just trying to see what number he can get from them, which I said, honestly, good for him because
that's what you got to do.
Yeah, it's a business at the end of the day and you got to advocate for yourself. I'm sorry. I don't feel
And when's the
bad.
last time Rico probably got a raise? We don't know, but I'm assuming it was a long time
Vanessa
ago.
says a comment in this episode about like they treat you like a migrant worker, which I do think they don't appreciate Rico as much as they should. But also they don't have the money that Kroner has to be able to pay him. We know that they're financially strapped right now.
Clearly they're hiring hot gay dancers.
Yeah, to do old people ballroom dancing in the funeral home. But they ask him what he wants. And Rico says that he wants to be a partner. And David's like, well, that would require a significant financial investment on your part. And Nate is like, just don't do anything until we have a chance to counter. And Rico says, okay, and leaves. And David says to Nate after he's gone, he's finally figured out he's worth more than we can pay him, or fucked.
Which is just shitty to say. I mean, I'm sure Nate is his safe space.
Yeah.
And whatever. So I guess it's
Which
not
is cute.
shitty to say out loud, right? But it's like, did you hear what you just said? You
Right.
were underpaying him knowingly.
So too bad. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously,
there's
I
different
do
ways that
actually
could
feel bad for the Fishers. I don't want the Fishers to go under, but the right way to think about this is that Rico should do what's best for him.
Yes.
That's the integrity. If you have integrity, that's how you should do it, I guess. But I don't know. I know it's more complicated than that in terms of how Rico's thinking about it too, with loyalty. And loyalty means different things to different people.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to the Crossroads, and Claire's talking to Parker, and she's like, why did you sleep? Actually asked him, she asked her this out of the blue, too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just like a quick jab, like, why did you sleep with him? And Parker's like, just to see if I could. And I was like, okay, at least she's being honest. It worked.
We keep getting these little drops from Parker, and each one stacks up to the psychopath tower for her. It's like, oh, okay.
I wonder, though, Parker's probably super intelligent because...
Well, clearly, if she can manipulate people like this.
I see this as like a game to her.
Yeah. I think everything, that's kind of how... Yeah,
she
how they
operates.
paint her characters. Everything's a game, and she's just like fucking with people. But then the dude, Dennis, asks Claire which way they should go, because he has to ask everyone. They all get a chance to lead, and Claire's like, oh, I don't care, whatever. Plus, remember, she just saw them having sex the night before. So
why would he ask her?
I think that he was trying to exert his power over her to show that he's in charge. Like, and I'm not scared of you. And
which is funny because Claire wouldn't have said a fucking thing.
No. And I didn't like that he was doing that. But Claire finally says, okay, that way. And he's like, okay, maybe someone else. And then...
Because they knew it was
the wrong way. But then Parker butts in with playing her games, and she insists that they go
to
the way
exert
Claire.
Her.
Exactly. That's what I wrote down. That's the same. Literally, that is what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
So... she is like, no, I really think, like, Claire paid her $1,200 too. And
I love your fucking line.
Parker is playing his game, which I kind of like. She's saying, no, bitch, actually, I have the power. And Claire is pissed because she doesn't want to
She says, don't pull me into this shit.
Yeah, pretty much. But I do think that Dennis was kind of poking at Claire by asking her right after she saw them having sex, which way should we go? To kind of be like, I'm not afraid of you. And then Claire's like, ah. And Parker's like, no, I want to do what Claire said, even though everyone knew it was wrong. And yeah, I feel like she saw him exerting power over Claire and was like,
I could do that.
Yeah, she was like, let me just step in this game here real quick.
Which, if the intentions were what she said out loud, like she said, Claire paid
her money too.
So she's actually not wrong.
No, but she was playing a game.
But her intentions were wrong.
Yes, her intentions were, I mean, depends on who you ask, I guess. I don't think she did that to in any way be in support of or defend Claire, even though it was kind of like, could be
we were
seen as
supposed to
being
feel
nice
that way
to Claire.
Yeah.
I think she was doing it 100% to fuck with Dennis.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that Claire was a scapegoat for that. Yeah, interesting. But Nikolai and Ruth are working on flower arrangements, and Nikolai explains that he likes when things are busy and he's talking about random shit. Ruth zones out and starts imagining herself with Hiram and making out with Hiram, and it's soft and there's flowers and it's sensual and sweet, and she's just daydreaming about making out with Hiram. And then Nikolai's like, I'm boring you, which was kind of a funny scene. And then we're back at Crossroads, and Parker asks Claire if she really put the foot in Gabe's locker. And Claire says, yeah. And she's like, okay, good, he deserved it. And Claire's like, did you fuck him? And Parker said, yeah. And she was like, did you suck his toes? And Parker goes, yep. So that also sucks for Claire because she got labeled the toe slut when Parker McKenna is also a toe slut, apparently. But
is she, though?
Yeah, good point. Is Parker really a toe slut?
Did Parker really suck the toes?
Yes. Because that's a perfect example of something that she would just decide to lie about.
Because Claire brought it up.
Yeah.
And if you're smart enough, she would know that she brought it up because Claire did that.
Can you tell we're well practiced in this?
We've caught a lot of cheaters in our day.
So then Dennis approaches them out of the blue and says that they need to leave because they intentionally tried to lead the group off course. And he also knows that Claire has pot in her bag, and then he pulls it out of her bag. Parker tells him he's a fucking loser. Then he calls her a bitch, and he goes, you're fucking with people's lives here. And then Claire comes up behind him, and she's like, and some of those people are completely innocent bystanders. Hello? Poor Claire. She really was just trying to go to this Crossroads program because Gary told her to, and she's just
Gary's gonna be so bummed.
Roped into all this shit because of Parker. And then they call Claire's house, and David answers.
Thank God.
They think it's the father, but it's David. And he's just like, okay. And he hangs up the phone, doesn't say anything. And we find out that he doesn't tell Ruth, and he's not planning on telling Ruth. And I thought that was a cool big brother move of him. Like, not that big of a deal that Claire had pot, and they just don't need Ruth to find that out right now. She's not in a place to handle that well. And it's not that big of a deal. And Dennis tries to talk to Claire when Parker's off behind a tree
on her
pissing.
level.
And he's kind of telling her in a way to be careful of Parker, I got the vibe, but also he was trying to get it out of Claire to figure out if she thinks that Parker was going to tell on him for sleeping with her. And then Parker comes out from behind a tree and she lights up a joint, and he's like, Parker, don't light that or put that away. And she ignores him, and he just is like, ugh. Because he doesn't have any power over them or her. I mean, he can make them leave, but she's not going to listen to him. I was like, good, don't listen to him.
I was also thinking, like, is that really what you want to do? Is stir the pot if you're like the person that is...
He should be scared.
Yes. Not kicking them out.
Why would you provoke her?
Yeah.
Even if
poking the fire.
Like, you clearly can tell that she's a psycho too.
Yes.
So why are you... Yeah, you're an idiot. He's just power hungry. And then we find out from Dennis, actually inadvertently, he's talking to Claire, that Topher has actually been doing this program since he was 14 and is going to Stanford in the fall. And Claire starts to get stressed out when she finds out this information. She doesn't say this, but you can tell she's starting to get agitated about not having a plan for her own future. Because she's like, Topher, he hates this. What are you talking about? And Dennis is like, oh no, he's been doing it every year for years and he's going to Stanford. And she's like, Topher's going to Stanford? And she's just like, oh. And then the car pulls up to bring them back to town.
Yeah, that was an interesting scene.
It was weird how they I wanted them to make Dennis's character grosser for doing that. But I also want to know his exact age, because that kind of matters in this situation. Is he like 21 or is he like 40? I literally cannot tell. He has the same square rectangle orange head he does. Not that it, again, would make it okay if he was 21 and she was 17, but
I feel like that is okay.
I mean, technically or not technically, yeah, it depends. But
me and Logan were 3 years apart.
I know, but I'm saying, like, if he could still get in trouble for that.
The authority, yes. The fact that he is basically an authority figure, yes. We still just want to know.
Yes. Then we really quick see Nate taking the funeral director's exam, and he's looking stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Then we see Vanessa and Rico at Chloe's service, and Vanessa is like, damn, she looks good.
This really is a Sistine Chapel.
Yes, it was so cute. She's supporting him. They have, like you said, a super strong connection and relationship, a really happy, healthy marriage, and I love Vanessa. And Vanessa tells Rico that he needs to accept Kroner's offer, and she says they treat you like a migrant worker, talking about the Fishers, and they're both excited about the potential pay bump that Rico's going to get from accepting this offer. And there's another funny moment when Vanessa was looking at the casket and she was saying all this stuff, and then they start to walk away, and you see Chloe's friends come up right behind them to look at her, and they go, oh my gosh, she looks amazing. She looks better than she ever has. And Vanessa over her shoulder goes, you should have seen her yesterday.
Which was so weird.
Brazen. Like, I love that Vanessa, well, she works at the nursing home.
Yeah.
And she too deals with death on a regular basis because she's, remember, the hookup kind of for the Fisher and Sons. I didn't even think about that. They're going to probably lose that business then too, which it really sucks. And that's another reason they should have been paying him more. But anyway, she doesn't get grossed out by, she's the perfect person for Rico to be like,
look at what I did.
Yeah. And she loves it and supports him and is like, this is beautiful. So we see Kurt and David on their date, and Kurt is very forward. He says he likes David's shirt, but I bet it looks better off. And they're making conversation and kind of talk about coming out to their families. And Kurt is chill, but he had a traumatic coming out journey.
Yeah, it was really hard to hear him. His dad walked in on him fucking somebody on the office desk, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what he said.
And it ruined
him with having sex with a guy.
Yes, because they were talking about how he grew up with his grandparents and why that happened. And so hearing that trauma, who knows if that's actually, just as a parent now, I can see how that might not have actually been the reason that they got a divorce. But he has ingrained that in his soul since he was a child. And so that trauma he feels so much heaviness and weight on the fact that his parents broke up and ended up with his grandparents. And he probably feels it like a burden to his grandparents as well.
Yeah.
And it just is interesting.
Yeah. He really quickly explained that his dad walked in on him having sex and they kicked him out, and then his parents got a divorce, and it was all because he was gay and it was super dramatic or whatever. But he also says a little bit later on in the conversation, mentions that he's working on his master's degree in social work, specializing in, what did he say? Specializing in like older people.
Yes.
And so I think that was also another big piece of why David was so attracted to him. Obviously, he was attracted to him physically at first, seeing him from across the room, but he's picking up on the fact that this Kurt guy has depth and he's sensitive and he cares about people, and he has his own trauma, clearly, just like David does. So David is, I think, actually really connecting with this guy, but also at the same time, I shouldn't say at the same time, but just as an added thing, this guy is also very clearly kind of like, I don't know how to, what the appropriate or best or proper way to explain it is, but he's just very like in scene of dating and hooking up, whereas I think David wants to be, but David's more of a monogamous type.
We would probably call him a fuckboy.
Yeah, he's younger and he's sleeping around. He's talking openly about how he sleeps with a lot of people, basically.
Or, I'm sorry, the other generation below us would call him a fuckboy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
They probably have their own word for that.
Which also isn't a bad thing. I think
he's fine with it, and David doesn't care either. I mean, I don't think David's necessarily looking for anything super serious because I think, he's still in love with Keith. Hasn't been that long. So it's actually like a perfect fit, and I can see why David likes this guy.
Yes.
And he does ask David about his coming out journey too, though, and David kind of fibs and just says, oh, my mom is still kind of weird about it, but my dad was fine with it because his dad is dead, so he can say that, I guess, now. And yeah, they just kept kind of diverting back to sex stuff and in their conversation, and Kurt asked David if he's a top or a bottom, and David is like, I'm versatile. And he's like, okay, let's get out of here. But Brenda and Connor and Nate and Billy are all getting fucked up together at their dinner that Brenda had invited Nate to, and Nate either took drugs or was drugged. And now that I think about it, I think Billy drugged him with the pot because he kept giving him the bong.
Yep.
But Nate is starting to hallucinate. And this is where we said at the very beginning of the episode, at least for me, this is where shit got really weird for me when I was watching this.
I was so confused.
This is they did a very good job of making the viewer feel like you were in the hallucination with Nate. And that is like how you feel in your head. I feel like when you're super intoxicated or messed up, but you can just tell he's saying weird shit. And before he gets super messed up though, Billy apologizes to Nate for going off of his meds.
Yeah. And I am thinking, what the fuck? Did he plan this out? Like, Billy knew.
Yeah.
It seems like he was admitting
that he intentionally went off his meds.
At the time. The timing was an intentional timing because it was supposed to be their getaway weekend.
For sure.
He says he did it because he wanted to feel alive again. Which is true.
I think, I get what you're saying. It's like, yeah, that's true and valid, I guess. I mean, you shouldn't do that.
No, not without a doctor.
But it's like, okay, yeah, great, Billy, but you knew that you were what the result of that was gonna be.
Yep, and you knew what the weekend was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seemed the timing was there.
Yeah, so then Billy continues on and he tells Nate that he doesn't want to come in between him and Brenda. She's happier than he's seen her in a long time. He really means it.
I don't believe it.
And then Nate hits the bong and is looking at Brenda and Connor suspiciously and keeps looking at the sleepy Meg in the corner. And out of the blue, or not out of the blue.
There's like cobwebs on it.
Yeah, he loses it and yells, "What fucking language are you speaking?" Which was such a random thing to say. That's not what I was expecting him to say.
No.
He just shouts at the three of them, "What fucking language are you speaking?"
But they were speaking in the Aussie accent.
Which, Rachel Griffiths is Australian, so that would have been her real talking voice.
Oh my God.
Isn't that funny?
Very.
Weird. That was probably
It's like she took her wig off for a minute.
Yeah. But yeah, Nate was hallucinating and freaking out. And then Billy goes to Nate, "Buddy, chill." And I wrote, okay, coming from Billy.
But sometimes that is what you need to hear. Like, everything's fine.
But Billy is the one who's always freaking out.
Yes, agreed. It shouldn't have come from Billy. But sometimes...
And Billy is the one who's making Nate hallucinate. I'm 99% sure. So it was like he was slipping him these drugs and then he's like, "Yo, dude, chill."
So gaslighting.
Yeah, gaslighting him. I'm pretty sure. But
also, whenever I remember the first time that we smoked weed.
Yes, oh my God.
I had the same situations going on. It was fucking weird. And I needed somebody to just tell me that it was going to be okay. Like, just chill.
We were.
I know, you didn't do it right. I called the person that I babysit for.
Oh my God, Courtney. Yeah. That was in your freaking heyday when you were just a nut.
Yes. Turns out it's anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely were having something. And then she proceeded to eat an entire box of the chocolate granola bars. Chocolate chip granola chewy bars.
Yep.
Those are really good, though.
Yeah.
So anyways, Claire is driving Parker in her hearse, and I guess she's driving her home probably or something after they got booted out of this trip. And they're talking about random stuff, and Claire asks her, "How do you think Dennis knew I had pot?" And
valid question.
Parker, without missing a beat, goes, "Didn't your dad die?" So obviously Parker told Dennis that Claire had pot.
Yes.
What a bitch.
So basically, they're sitting in the hearse, which seems like random, right? This whole thing is like, how did they fucking end up here? But it was probably all meticulously planned out by Parker.
To get them booted out?
Sure. To get Claire alone, to get her...
She just got interested in her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be. But yeah, I think she just likes fucking around and finding out, honestly. But that made me kind of put my guard up for Claire toward Parker when
the deflection.
When she deflected that question. But they talk about their home lives then. And Parker's dad apparently is a big shot at Disney. And she keeps getting kicked out of private schools, she says. And they say that neither of them are who the other one thought they were. And Claire goes, "I thought you were like this total overachiever, Little Miss Perfect, when in reality you're like this compulsive liar, danger slut." Which, when she said that, I'm like, okay, good. You see her. Know. And then Parker goes, "I thought you were like this goth arty freak girl who's like tragic and suicidal." And Claire was like, "Oh my gosh, that's not who I am at all." And then Parker's like, "Yeah, nobody's ever who they seem to be."
Which is just ironic.
For her to say, especially.
It's her, yeah.
But yeah,
is that an admittance?
That's a whole like theme though, I think, for the whole episode in a way.
It is.
You could apply that lens to it. Or even maybe chunk of episodes, like maybe even the first season. Everyone's not who they seem to be. And then Claire goes, Yeah, nobody interesting. Which she always has like a funny sarcastic comment.
And that's true too.
Yep. Then we see Hiram and Ruth watching a show together at Ruth's house, and
So fucking weird. They're like this. Put your hand up higher because I don't think they can see.
But on the couch.
Yes. There's no fingers intertwined.
Just touching
hands. Total vanilla. Okay.
Yeah, it was silly. But I feel like they explicitly intended for that scene to look obviously vanilla, because then the next thing that happens, well, they're talking about random stuff again, and then Hiram starts babbling, Ruth starts zoning out, but this time, instead of imagining herself making out with Hiram, who she's sitting right next to, she starts imagining herself making out with Nikolai in a Russian uniform, and this makeout session is
like
passionate and passionate, and they're grabbing on each other.
She's probably actually having an orgasm.
Yeah, it was like it looked like she was envisioning passion with Nikolai and the sense of safety and calm with Hiram.
Yes.
And she doesn't know what she wants.
Can't we have
Or she wants them both. Yeah.
You have to date women.
Yeah. Or Hiram.
Does he have the passion?
Oh, I get what you're saying. I thought you meant for the safety part.
Yeah, you can have the passion and the safety.
Yeah, I get it. You're right.
If you want that, it's a woman. You can date us.
Yeah. So Nate is still messed up, hallucinating, and Connor, they were alone in the kitchen together for a hot minute. Connor says to Nate that he's really glad he and Lollies, he calls her, aka Brenda, hooked up. Personally, I couldn't handle her playing Freud all the time.
Valid.
And Nate says, well, she is a complicated woman. And Connor's like, no, she's not, and walks away, which was kind of funny. And Nate goes to join the rest of them out around the coffee table in the living room. They're all just partying together. He's obviously loopy-goopy.
And I basically just put in that I'm getting anxiety from this entire thing.
Yes, because he already freaked out and was like, what language are you speaking? And so it's like, what is he going to say next? And what's he going to see? It was anxiety.
He doesn't feel safe right where he's at right now.
That is a good way to describe it, because I didn't feel safe watching it.
No.
And that's what they made you feel, like he didn't feel safe. And then Brenda and Connor and Billy are all acting all drunk and silly.
And having a blast.
They're having a lot of fun, giggling, laughing.
I actually don't think Billy's actually having... It's funny. I think he's putting in a show.
He's being calculated. But he's pretending he's having fun. And Nate keeps on hitting the bong that Billy is handing to him. I think he spiked the pot, again, with some hallucinogenic. And Nate freaks out again about a picture that he sees of Brenda and Connor. He was like giving her a piggyback ride on the beach or something. And he's like, when was that taken? Where did you sleep? Because that sleeping bag hasn't moved an inch in days. And Billy's like, they sleep in the same bed. Where else? And then Nate starts freaking out, obviously, because Brenda had lied to him about that. And Brenda's like, okay, I didn't tell you because I knew that this is how you'd react. And I think Brenda said, am I supposed to make an old friend sleep on the floor? And Nate's like, you have a shiatsu mat? Which was
probably not that comfortable.
Hilarious, because he's tripping and he's so upset, but at the same time, for whatever reason, his brain decides he should also try to come up with solutions. I was like,
is there a couch though? There's not a couch.
No, she just has like a coffee table. You're right. Yeah, she doesn't even have a couch. She has like, some chairs, like folding chairs.
Okay. All right.
And
fuck you, I'm leaving.
Yeah, he just says, fuck you, I'm leaving. Brenda closes the door. He's like, have fun. They're Aussie, fuck me, or whatever. Then we see David and Kurt banging, and they're loving it. And Kurt says to David, damn, you are versatile. So
they went from bottom to then switch it around.
I like it, yeah. And then Nate's talking to Ruth about Brenda at the breakfast table. And Ruth says to him, wanting to feel connected with someone doesn't make you possessive or an asshole. But until there's a commitment, you have no claim on her. A woman doesn't have to wait to be chosen anymore. She can do the choosing. And Nate says, yeah, but if she waits too long, the right guy might just move on. And Ruth says, you're right, Tyr. You're so right. But I said, I think Ruth is comparing their situation to her own situation with Hiram, but also Nikolai. And that's what you said too.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm seeing that now. I feel like she's trying to convince herself that Hiram has no claim over her and that she can fuck Nikolai, and she's giving herself that pass. Which it is, But then again, it just comes right back to boundaries in your relationship. You just have to have explicit boundaries and have transparency and talk about them.
Yeah, I think she's in this moment here kind of wanting to have her cake and eat it too a little bit, because she's doing, I think, exactly what you said. She's kind of trying to convince herself in her head it's okay for her to want Nikolai and she can fuck Nikolai if she wants or whatever. But Nate's reminding her, he's, without realizing it, he's being the devil's advocate, saying, well, if she waits too long, the right guy might just move on.
Which is Hiram in this scenario, if she's thinking that Hiram is the right guy.
Yeah.
But sex is a really big part of your intimate relationships too. So,
and I think they do have, I think it's just more vanilla. Because I think they do have passion. You know?
Yeah.
But Nikolai is spicy.
And new.
And new. And
technically off limits.
Yeah. Technically off limits and abrasive. And that can be like the push and pull. We said they have tension.
And just because you have these fantasies doesn't mean you have to act on them.
Yeah. And she hasn't had to ever deal with this ever because she married Nathaniel, which was 19. So this is the first time in her life she's ever been in this situation.
Yeah.
Poor Ruth.
No proper, they didn't give a class on this.
Yeah. No experience to draw from. She's just raw dogging it.
Literally.
Then David walks in and interrupts their conversation because he's so excited that a bus overturned on the 10 last night and 44 people died. So fucking morbid.
Yes.
And Nate knows that David is also chipper because he got laid the night before. He's like, did you sleep well last night? David's like, yeah. And then Nate's like, did you sleep at all? And
that was probably the first time that David has fucked
in so long.
Because he didn't have sex with the other guy, right?
What other guy?
That he met up with and told him his name was Chuck or something.
Oh, I think he just went down on him.
Yeah.
Or no, yeah, the guy went down on him.
Yes.
So it wasn't I mean, they could have.
True, but it didn't.
It didn't feel.
And that probably was still a while ago too.
This. I mean, that really quick blip we saw of them, they were both very happy with Kurt and David. But then David asks Nate about the funeral director's test, and Nate says that he thinks that he choked, which we don't find out for sure. But then Rico walks in and quits in front of Ruth even.
Which I thought was kind of weird.
It was kind of weird, but I feel like
there's their breakfast table.
Yeah, but also I've been there. This is a unique situation because they're literally in their home and at the breakfast table. But when I quit my teaching job, when I went to go tell my principal that I was resigning, I had to just
spit it out.
I went straight down there as soon as the bell rang after school and walked right in her office, and I was like, can I talk to you? Shut the door. And I couldn't. It was otherwise I would, if you wait too long, I just needed
wouldn't have had the courage to do it.
Yeah, or I just wanted, because I knew as soon as one person knew, everyone would. I don't know. The quicker you do it, the better. I just feel like there's something about it. Agreed. You just gotta rip the Band-Aid off. But it was also.
You could have said, hey, can I talk to you guys?
Yeah.
Not at your breakfast table.
He also, he said it. He didn't walk in fuck you, I quit.
Wait a second. Ruth is a partner.
Oh, yeah, she is a partner.
So I guess it was fine.
But also, though, I think he wanted to say to Ruth, thank you for everything.
Yeah.
Because he did say that to them. Thanks for everything, but I'm dipping. And they're stunned, kind of, but David says, thank you, and I'm sorry that we can't offer you more. And Nate says, they'll never appreciate you. And Rico's like, we'll see. Word of advice, guys, don't turn your back on Gilardi. And he walks out, and David says, this was interesting, because earlier in the episode, David was super pissed that Rico was betraying them, and Nate was kind of being the devil's advocate, oh, I mean, who cares? Whatever. He can do what he wants. But now Nate is the one who is like, I can't believe he's doing this. And David's like, well, he doesn't owe us anything. And then Ruth goes, nobody owes us. But you know what I think it is? I think because earlier, and I might be wrong, but this is just a connection I made. Earlier on in the episode, when Nate was more lenient toward Rico's situation and David was being a bitch, that was before Nate and Brenda got in a fight and before David got laid. Mm-hmm. Then Nate and Brenda got in a fight, and then David got laid.
So you're telling me men have emotions too, and that they actually don't make decisions without using their emotions as well.
It's literally directly correlated to their relationship. Like their
Squabbles.
Yeah, their sex lives, essentially. And for us, I feel like it would be more for the relationship aspects of it.
I also, that is so interesting. And pointing out too, Rico was like, you guys didn't even talk about this.
Yeah.
So
Which
that
was
probably hurt. Yeah. Why didn't they? I mean, because they were both busy.
I think they were busy, and they both also knew that they were fucked because they weren't going to be able to talk.
They still should have talked about it. That's not
Yeah, they
cool.
should have. That was kind of, they dropped the ball. That sucked. And David was busy.
For me, that would be like, if I was hungry, I would be making, I would be like less, I'd be more angry. Yes.
So then Nate walks into Brenda's the next day to apologize, and he says, my only defense is I think I was hallucinating. That and the thought of being with another man makes me crazy. And Brenda says she threw Kroner out, and Nate asks if she forgives him, and she's like, sure, why not? And he's like, good, now it's your turn. And Brenda scoffs and is like, why? What do I need to apologize for? And Nate's like, yeah, for trying to use Billy and Kroner to push me away, for being impatient with my feelings and never being really willing to change, but always asking me to change. And she's like, okay, that's fair. And she apologizes. And Nate was like, part of you wants me to bail. And she's like, yeah, you're probably right. And she explains that she's traumatized from past relationships and from her childhood, etc. And Nate's like, okay, promise me that I'm the only naked man in your bed and in your life. I love you and I want to be with you for the long haul, but there's a limit to the amount of shit that I will put up with. And then Brenda says her line here.
Did you just make me a lifetime commitment right before a thinly veiled threat of abandonment? And I'm like, that is interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. She was kind of deflecting in a way by saying that, but at the same time, it was true.
And I'm still pro Nate though in this
I
episode.
know that was a kind of a controlling thing to say, or a weird. I don't know.
Yes, I know it's weird because it was like an ultimatum.
Yeah.
But at some point, there has to be this conversation.
Well, Nate was setting a boundary here.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to be the only naked man here, which is a valid, and he's explicitly stating a boundary there. So
that was interesting.
Yeah. And they end up kissing and making up again. Then Nate's phone rings, and it's David to tell him that they're getting 3 bodies from the bus. Then Claire walks in and flops down at the kitchen table at the Fisher house. And David's in the kitchen, and he's like, dear Lord, what did they do to you? She goes, don't ask. Did Mom freak when you told her I got busted? And David says he didn't tell her, and he's not planning on it. And then he looks at her, and he's like, I'm sorry the Crossroads thing didn't work out like you had hoped. And Claire says it was actually amazing, and she learned something really valuable, that everything that she knows is wrong. And then she asks David, whatever happened to that Keith guy? And David says, it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out. And she's like, well, that's too bad. And David's like, well, life goes on. And Claire's like, that it does. Then David says, well, there's work to be done. And then he walks out. And as he's walking out, he puts down a glass of orange juice in front of Claire. And that was my favorite
nasty
moment.
Looking orange juice.
That was my favorite moment of the whole episode because it was such an endearing moment. I feel like Claire is the only one out of their family right now that David can really, I don't know, like be himself around.
It seems like he's trying to put on something for Nate. Like he has to prove something to Nate. I don't know what it is.
He has
a lot of things
with Nate. Like
yes.
he has, but he doesn't have that with Claire.
He doesn't.
Because she's not involved in any of their business dealings, whatever. He doesn't have any reason to be resentful toward her. Which I'm so glad that they have each, or that he has her especially, and she has him. But I feel like almost in a weird way, Claire does more for David just by being a person that he can be himself around.
Yep.
Than David is really doing for Claire at this point. I mean, other than not ratting her out for getting busted with the pot. And I mean, he's being a kind and loving and gentle brother. And just the gesture of leaving her, like handing her a glass of orange juice, that's an act of service. Like
that's my love language.
Love. Yes, that is.
He drank it.
Yeah, it's like I care about you. I'm nourishing you. And just from a big brother to a little sister. And it was just such a sweet moment. I loved it so much. Hands down, my favorite
part of
the episode.
When that ended, though, I was like, what the fuck? This is a weird ass ending.
It was kind of an abrupt ending. It's interesting because I've slowly been realizing as we've been doing this that Alan Ball is the creator and the writer for many episodes, but not the writer for every episode.
So I did notice that.
Yeah, there's different writers, and I think that the way that the episode, I mean, it changes, obviously. The styles are different depending on who wrote it. I really like it, actually, because it keeps things interesting.
Yeah.
But it's fun to kind of compare and contrast.
Interesting.
All right. Mate, date, cremate. Who should we pick? I want to
Parker.
Okay, for sure Parker, and for sure.
Ooh.
I don't even know if we should. I was gonna say Dennis, but he would. I feel like we'd kill him. Or no, you probably wouldn't. Okay, Parker, Dennis, and Kurt.
Ooh.
Parker, Dennis, and Kurt. Mate, date, cremate. Who would you mate?
They're
all very sexual people.
Yeah, this is a good one. I think I would mate Dennis.
Right, that's what I said you would do. I would mate Parker.
Okay.
Why would you mate Dennis?
I would mate Dennis because
apparently you have a fantasy about sleeping with a camp counselor.
just some sort of authoritative figure.
Yeah, I get that.
I feel like I'm attracted to Parker more.
She is beautiful.
Yes.
Parker is beautiful, and I love her curly hair.
But I just don't. I could probably do it. I'm queer and pansexual, which means I need, and demi, which means I need like a connection, and I can't connect to a psychopath. Like I don't know.
I think we could connect with Parker.
We probably could.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, though.
But it was, yeah, I don't know.
We just happen to kind of have a lot in common.
And that's just what the cards dealt.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. The cards just dealt me this. Well, and so you would fuck Parker, or you would mate Parker.
Yeah, finish yours and then I'll go through mine.
Okay, so I said mate Dennis, date Kurt.
Why would you date Kurt?
Because he's honest. And I need transparency in a relationship.
Yeah.
And he clearly likes to have sex. So.
Yeah. And
I could peg him. I've got all the things.
Or we don't know if that's what he does. Would you be fine with a lot of anal as well?
I could figure it out. We don't know how big he is.
Yeah.
You know, guys are always trying to tell you it's so big until it comes to
and
anal.
feeling
it's
like big.
Not that big. It's not that big.
And why would you cremate Dennis?
And I would cremate Parker.
Why would you cremate Parker?
Because she just is leftover.
Yeah. And she is a
she's
psycho.
cremateable.
Yeah. I would mate Parker because I think she's really pretty and she's clearly adventurous and DTF.
If you were queer, I feel like the way that Parker looks would be your type.
Really?
Yeah.
What about it? What about her?
I could just see you being with somebody
What is her type? I'm curious.
She's put together.
Yeah.
And I think she showers every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think Dennis showers every day. Because he's a camp.
Yeah, he's getting cremated. I can't with his orange rectangle head.
Yeah.
And he's just gross, and he's a predator, obviously, and likes to exert power over his sexual partners in a non-sexual way.
Uh-huh. Or just exert his power in general.
Yeah. And it's like, fuck off.
And then
not
you
always, but yeah.
Wait, so you're cremating him.
I would cremate him, and I would also date
Kurt.
Same
So we
with
could
them.
take turns then, so I don't have to do it.
Yeah. He'd probably be fine with it being Polly. Who was your MVP for this episode?
Claire.
Why?
Because she stood strong. She went and did this stupid trope and did things that were out of her realm.
Yeah.
And out of her element. And wanted to continue through even when she was given the out. Like, you're getting kicked out. She's like, just pissed off about it. I don't know. She was just very genuine. I love that she was able to call everybody out on their bullshit in a non-confrontational way. It was just admirable.
Yeah, she's putting herself out there. She's doing her best. She cares. And
she's learning along the way.
She is learning along the way. I agree. I'm trying to think if I might give MVP to Kurt for saving David, but I don't know. I was gonna say also maybe Nate for putting up with Brenda's shit, but no, I don't think that's MVP worthy. I think that's just dramatic. Nobody else really did anything that great. So I agree. I think Claire is the one who did the most. The only other one I might say is David for being such a good big brother to Claire, but only those very specific parts of the episode for him.
Yeah.
And the whole episode was kind of more Claire. So yeah, I'd go with Claire too.
Yeah.
Overall, she did good.
There was a lot of good contenders though.
Yeah.
I mean, even Rico.
Yeah, Rico for
you have to be so proud of that because it's so hard. I mean, you were saying about when you quit your teaching job, I can't even imagine. Ugh, thank God you don't have to go through that anymore.
Yeah.
So there's that. What did you guys think? Like and comment, subscribe.
Please like and subscribe.
Tell your friends about us.
Share with someone who you think might like it. Comment below.
Yeah, we're on Instagram. We're on YouTube.
I specifically really want someone to comment on one of our YouTube videos.
Yes, YouTube, give us some comments,
Pretty sure we have 0 comment. Oh, we have 1 comment, and it's from Michelle. Love you, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Pretty sure she said, I love you guys. And we love you too. But we also like some more comments from people who we don't have to explicitly
tell
for.
Mom!
Yeah.
Mom!
Yes. Okay, thank you for listening.
Follow me on Instagram, YouTube, Climax with Courtney.
Yes.
And then 6 Feet Unfiltered.
On all the things. I just type.
We'll put all this shit in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. See you next time. Mwah.